Is it 5?
All
All right.
Yeah, I don't
Jerry, we're ready, sir.
I gotta be careful.
All possible, with like 2 inches on that side.
All right,
Sorry,
I
just
think we're
don't
going to
wanna
get
elbow you.
started. So I'm going to call the Village Board of Oregon Monday, April 18th, 2022 to order. Candy, can we have the roll call?
Beshin. Belo.
Here.
Valig.
Here.
Glish.
Here.
Peterson.
Here,
Stitch.
Here.
And Wunsch.
Here.
and Carlene's on her way.
Oh, she's on her
Any
way.
minute. We were in a work meeting
Okay.
together, so.
Because she asked me to move something, but I don't think I need to do it since she'll be here. Okay. All right, let's go to number 3, which is approval of April 11th, 2022 Village Board meeting minutes. I'll take a motion in a second. Derek, take a
A
second.
second for discussion.
Okay, discussion. All right. Go ahead, Amanda, we're up for discussion.
I'll let, but, I just noticed in the minutes about the request for proposal that we had, that it lists to make the property available for private redevelopment through that, and that's what we wanted to take out. That's not what I thought we voted on.
The first part.
Number 1, yeah.
I was under the
I think towards the
impression
end
we
it has
voted
the-
on the objectives, the 3 objectives, and not
Yeah.
the recommendation earlier on.
So I think if you look towards the end of that bolded section, so there was 1, 2, and then the 3 part was
Yeah.
about the private development. So, the recommendations that Martin and I made, the 1 through 4, those we didn't change last week. It was and again, those were things that you didn't necessarily have to agree with. Those were just our recommendations. But the scope of work for Vanderwall that I've asked them to prepare is just items 1 and 2. There was a number 3, which was write an RFP to solicit private development, so that part is not included in Candy's minutes.
Yeah, and then the first part, the A, was the first bullet point where it said it's development, for development, and that's where we changed it to for its use.
Okay.
Yeah, so it looks right to me. I was looking at this last week too, just because I was copy pasting in an email to Vanderwall.
Okay, the way it was all put together like that made it seem less clear. That's all. So the memo says that part, but then the actual motion was the bottom half of that, what we decided.
Well,
Yes.
the motion was to include the comments or the plans, but the second part was that's where we were modifying. Like the third bullet point
Yeah.
in that first. Is that right, Elise? Was my understanding.
Yeah.
I thought we were just voting on the objectives as opposed to the recommendation.
Correct. Right, so the objectives is what the motion was focused on, I believe. And so, again, in the memo, there was a 1, 2, and 3. We took out number 3, and then we changed some wording in number 1.
Okay, as long as that's clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep, I did
that's
not
what I
ask them
understood.
to do that third step in
Okay.
my email.
Okay. No, we already got a motion and a
We got a-
second. Any other discussion? We're good, Jerry. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Public appearances, 4A. Public comment. This part of the agenda is to allow members of the public to provide information to the village board, including items both on and off the agenda. Mr. Staton, I know, is here.
You want me right here?
Yes, sir. If you state your name and where you live.
Okay, my name is Steve Staton. I'm at 456 Orchard Drive in Oregon, and I am here to acknowledge the many things that Jerry Bollig did while he was on the board. I was on the board for 16 years. Jerry was on for most of those years. 12 of those I was president. He sat right beside me. One of the interesting things at the first meeting we didn't have tablets then, it was all paper packets. And I had all the paper beside me and, a little nervous getting started or whatever. So to be sure I didn't get mixed up on my stuff, when I got something done, I'd put the paper on the floor. I think we did that. Well, Jerry is picking it up and putting it back in the pile. Which is typical of Jerry, trying to be helpful. So, in thinking of Jerry on the board, he was always respectful, he was well prepared, he always had questions about invoices, that was just pretty much a given.
He still does.
And, he would meet with Mike, who at that time was the administrator, and Lisa to be sure he was well informed and well prepared. And I mentioned he was always respectful to the board, to staff, to me, to people that came to the table and that type of thing, and was truly sincere in being concerned about what people brought forward to the board and for the village. Jerry he's been a lifelong resident. He's committed to this village. What he has done to benefit this village is, I think, probably beyond compare with the years of service he has on the board, and it's very, very admirable what he's done. We also benefited greatly from Jerry being on the county board. There were roads and streets that got done that would not have gotten done without Jerry. He was instrumental in some behind the scenes with Anderson Park, and he has represented the citizens of his district for the county very well, as also with the residents of Oregon. So the other thing I wanted to be sure I mentioned about Jerry, and I just about forgot it, that I think was very important, is that Jerry worked well with staff, and he never micromanaged them. And that's important. We always felt you hire good staff, you let them do their job. And Jerry did not micromanage. When that happens, you've got staff that second guess themselves, wonder who's this person going to think about this, whatever. And Jerry never did that. And I commend him for that, because that's very important for that to happen. If you have a question about village department head, Jerry would go ask them, and not try to do that in a way that micromanage them. So I applaud Jerry for all that he's done. I respect what he's done. He was a great board member, and he's also been a great friend. So congratulations to him, and I'm sure he'll enjoy having his Monday nights free. I missed him too, but not very long. So,
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. I put the check in the mail.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Steve. Anybody else in the public want to speak? Okay. I think Jeff, we'll go now to,
Yeah, we just,
Jeff asked if we could move one up. There's a person in the audience that, we'll move up 8.5.
8A5.
8A5, extraterritorial certified survey map for lot 59 and 60 of Wind Ridge subdivision in the town of Oregon, combining two parcels, submitted by Laura Wilmot. Okay, you're Laura?
I am.
Okay.
I was told I didn't need to speak
No, you
at the
don't.
last one, so I'll just be here for questions, I suppose.
Okay.
This is part of our standard extraterritorial jurisdiction review for land divisions in the surrounding towns. So Ms. Wilmot's property is off Wind Ridge Road. This is a combining of two lots, which she went into detail explaining the saga she's been through with the town. But we did have our engineers look at this, and no concerns from our end in terms of how the CSM is worded.
Okay. So we'll take a motion in a second, and we can get it on the board for discussion. All right, Mike, I saw Mike, and then I saw Amanda. Okay, first and a second. Any discussion on this one on the board? Okay. Seeing none or hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You're all set.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Randy.
You bet. Okay, we'll go back up to 4B, which is review financial analysis of tax increment financing request for Adam Coyle for multifamily residential development at 880 North Main Street. Staff recommendation is to direct the village attorney and village staff to draft a development agreement with the provision of tax increment financing as outlined in Eller's memo. Elise, do you want to get us started on
Sure.
this?
So we got started working after the board meeting back, I think, in February on this TIF analysis for Adam. We had Keith Dahl from Ellers work on this. He's out of one of your Minnesota offices, correct? And then Dave is here tonight to share a little bit of that report. So I'll try not to steal too much of Dave's thunder, but just overall, his introduction of Adam, we didn't really do a good job of that last time, but for those of you who are newer to the board, you may not know, but Adam Coyle was the one who was instrumental in bringing the hotel to Oregon and also the Rosewood Apartments, which are directly behind the hotel. He's an Oregon native and has been wonderful to work with from a staff level. So we always enjoy when he's got another idea for a project, and I think he really brings a lot of value in his projects and manages these properties long-term. So we have that asset, just to have a local person here investing in our community. I think the overall summary that we learned from Ellers and the reason that Adam meets our but-for analysis for TIF is that really with his rate of return without TIF assistance, he would not be able to attract private capital, loans from a bank, et cetera, for the project. So definitely meets a but-for analysis. We were also able to learn from Ellers that the village will be able to retain a percentage of the increment, and so that is money that in turn goes back to support projects in TID 4, infrastructure projects, roadway improvements, other things that benefit the village as a whole. We can ask Adam to maybe go more into the site about some of the contamination and other things that the project would be cleaning up, knowing that the site that he's looking at on North Main Street was an auto body shop and auto repair shop for quite some time. So this would be investment and cleanup of that property. We've also mentioned this last time, but there's been other commercial development that's been pursued here, and just due to the nature of the site, the configuration, and difficulties with putting in a drive-through, I believe this use is probably the best that we're going to see anytime in the near future. I know the seller is looking forward to retiring and be able to hand this property off to the next generation of users. We just did a large investment in North Main Street too, with adding sidewalks and bike lanes, and so I hope that a project like this would really spur a new wave of reinvestment in North Main Street, and this is our most important gateway field to the village on our north end. So really making this project shine and have it be a nice entrance to the village, I think would be a benefit. The whole. If there was anything else, Adam did share some updated landscaping plan, which I did forward to Jeff. We'll pull that up later if needed, and some of the sustainability features of the building, which I'm sure he'd be happy to share a little bit more about as well. Martin, anything else you want to add before we hand it over to Dave and Adam?
The only comment I had was it's TID 5.
TID 5, sorry. Yeah, I'm on the other end of it. We've done so much in TID 4 recently, so it's great to have a TID 5 project. All right, Dave, Adam, take it away. Feel free to pull up another chair if you'd like to as well.
Well, at least you did steal most of my thunder. But, this is not the first time you've hired us to do this kind of an analysis. We've done things in the past for, I'm trying to think offhand, I'm thinking maybe Jefferson Crossing, something like that. But you hired us, and actually a guy out of our Roseville office, Keith Dahl, actually worked on this, and this is the first time I've worked with him. And I think staff, as well as the developer, will chime in that there was a lot of good communication and things got done in a very timely manner. I think what you hired us to do is to do just what Elise said, is determine, but for the use of TIF money, would this project happen? And I think really the developer came to the table with an ask of about $880,000. Keith went through the process of evaluating what the materials that were going to be used for the project, what the rents would be, went through really the financial statements and did a pro forma, which kind of laid out what the rate of return would be. And what he came to the conclusion is he said that it looked like the gap wasn't as big as the developer asked for. He came to the conclusion that only 820,000 was necessary. He did vet that through Adam. I know they discussed it, and I won't speak for you, but I think that there was some agreement that that was reasonable. So what you'll see in front of you is really, Keith's given you a lot of really good information here from the pro forma itself. He lays out really all the things he looked at, how's it compared to some of the benchmarks. I actually was really, when I went through this, I think it really gives you quite a background into what the project about is and how it meets up with more of your market type stuff. So, really in the back end of this report is really the developer is hoping to have about 10% of annual cash-on-cash return, which standard is between 9 and 11. When we did the analysis, it came in at about 10.1% at year 18. And if this didn't come, if we didn't have a TIF contribution, that return would be more like 6.6. And as Elise said, your developer backers are looking for something to make a certain rate of return, and if you don't get that return, you may not get those investors as well. So what Keith is recommending through the analysis is that you consider an $820,000 municipal revenue obligation, which is also called the PAYGO note, at an interest rate of 4%. The village, on an annual basis, would retain 30% of the increment generated from this property. The other 70 would go towards that MRO. Just so you're kind of aware, in the past, the village has given much more than 70%. I think, I want to say 90 has been more than norm, even 100 maybe on the LIHTC property. So this is actually sort of a win-win because you're getting a little bit more money towards TIF projects and the repayment of some of the project costs that you've had in TIF 5. Is there anything else you wanted to add there? Think of?
I don't think so. I think Keith did a good job, again, with sort of the benchmarks for market rent, that everything, as we went through his recommendation last week, it seems like, Adam's request and where you're putting rents, everything is very reasonable and in line with where we would see market rate units elsewhere in Dane County.
Happy to answer any questions, or if you'd like to ask Adam's questions as well.
Randy?
Oh, sorry.
Question.
Yeah, Jerry.
Yeah, Dave, would you explain what a PAYGO arrangement, what it involves and how it
Sure.
works?
So what happens each year is the TIF district determines a certain amount of increment that it will basically create based on the value that's put on the ground. So if we limit this just to Adams, to the Coyle Apartments, if he puts in the value he's going to put in, there's a tax rate that's related to the tax increment worksheet. Really ends up being the equalized tax rate for the village. And so when you multiply that value that he puts on the ground times that amount, it gets that increment that can be used to provide incentives or to pay for projects in the future. So what we're suggesting in this and how a PAYGO happens is each year that tax amount is determined from that. Actually, I even do this for Lisa on a couple of the other pay-as-you-goes that we have, is that you determine how much that increment's going to be. There's a certain amount that the village holds, which in this case would be 30%, and then 70% would go towards that pay-as-you-go note, really. So it's basically an incentive that has a little bit of an interest rate on it, so that the developer earns a little bit of interest on that money as well.
Okay. Adam, do you want to?
Yeah, a couple of things on there. The change in the dollars, I can tell you where that came from real quickly. I had started this with the idea of raising 1.8 million, and the price of the project simply went up. So when I started, if you can hear me, when I started, it was a little over 20%. It was very close, but a little over. And then as the project went up to 1.8, I simply hadn't changed that because it matches a different partnership amount. So Keith was basically saying you got to come up with that extra little bit to make up 19 point whatever percent to make it 20%. So that was one of them. let's see, a couple of those, when we talk about the 10% return, it was going, that does take 18 years to get there. I think a lot of people are hoping to get there a little sooner in this industry. But we like the project. You know, we have a window in time here, an opportunity to do something on this side before, and I don't know what the other option would be, but it could remain automotive, it could do anything. Well, not anything, but a lot of other things. So I think we just have an opportunity here. I did try to address a couple of things from last time. I did reduce the parking count down about 8 spots, and I tried to send that in. I know this isn't really what we're talking about tonight, but we came in we came up with a pretty nice landscape plan. And so I do like that quite a bit if we can find it. Okay. The front looks pretty nice. So we've taken away from that rectangular. I have a newer one that,
I'll pull it up here just a second now.
no rush on that.
All right. Anybody have Mike's count for Adam or Dave?
The only other thing, just on Jerry's question, is one thing that happens with a pay-go is if you don't put the value in, you don't get the money. So really, the risk is mostly on, well, basically the risk is on the developer. If we did something where, you know, in a lot of cases in TIFs, at least in the past, the village would have to put in infrastructure and then try to get the value. In this case, you know, in the case of a pay-go, the risk is really on the developer. So the village, you're not borrowing the money. He's really doing all the work, and for him to get his incentive, he's actually got to put that value on the ground.
Mike?
Yeah, I like your project. I think it would do wonders for the north side of Oregon. What do you have, Elise had referred to sustainability things. What have you got designed into your building for that?
We do have electric car chargers in the parking lot, so two of the spots outside are electric car chargers. 2 of them in the basement are going to be electric car chargers. So there are 2 of those. Past that, it's all energy efficient. Everything is today. You know, everything is insulated up to today's standards and everything. You know, we are talking about a project and adding about $35,000 of solar panels on the roof. I haven't been able to get a quote back on that yet, but if you came down to it today and said, get that in there, I'm a proponent of it, so I would get that in there.
Okay.
As well as, yeah, adding green space to the site. Right now, it's essentially 100% impervious, extremely compacted soils, and then, yeah, just the new appliances. I know you always put in really high-end appliances into your units as well. It'd be very efficient.
Yeah, Amanda?
Oh, yeah, I just had a question. Refresh my memory. The back of that, are you hoping to connect that to the street behind it?
So that's just a turnaround for the fire truck.
Okay.
It's actually a stormwater management pond behind there
Okay.
that connects over to the Mary Hill neighborhood.
Okay.
But Cemetery to the north, Quick Trip to the south, the apartments behind Quick Trip are just kind of off the south end of that parking lot too.
Okay.
Okay.
This project does include, you know, some fairly significant fees that would be paid to the village as well. The park fees that get paid on this are almost $180,000, $179,438, and the library is about $42,000. So there are some upfront benefits plus the increased tax revenue that we're trying to do day 1 or year 2, whenever we're actually built.
Okay. All right, so I'm just going to make a comment. I'm actually going to make a motion. So I just want to say, I know that Adam does good projects, the hotel and the apartments, and I've been in other meetings with him. This is not a guy that is looking to get rich. He does really good projects. If he does what he says he's going to do. So I think this is a good project for the entrance into the village, and so I'm going to make the motion to direct village attorney and village staff to draft a development agreement with the provision of tax increment financing as outlined in Eller's memo. And if we get a second, we can discuss. Okay, Jerry? All right, discussion.
I'll just go down, I'll just review here for a little bit. This would dress up our north gateway to the village. And right now, in my estimation, that's something that would be very well received by the community. Secondly, it'll clean up contamination
Mm-hmm.
that could be leaching into the groundwater. It's a pay-go, so while it doesn't eliminate all risk, it eliminates as much as we can, and puts it on the developer. As Adam said, it contributes park fees to the park system, and as you know, we're spending a lot of money on parks right now. And it also adds 49 units of housing to the community, which is, the way the community is growing, it's much needed. So I'm also in favor of this.
Anybody else? Yeah, Derek.
Just to kind of piggyback on what Jerry said, although it isn't necessarily affordable housing, it's a lot more affordable to a lot of people than some of the $450,000 houses that are going up right now. So I very much appreciate this project for what it is. I like the design. I like the fact that it's going to take care of some environmental concerns on the north end as well, and hopefully get some other development going up there.
Okay. Anybody else? I do like Adam too, and echo kind of what I think Mike would like this, the sustainability piece, the chargers that, you know, it's a little step in the right direction where we kind of want to go with the village. So thank you for including those pieces in there. Anybody else? Yeah, Carlene.
I agree with everything that's been said, and I congratulate you on that. Ellers has found that you wouldn't be able to do this. So I feel like I could go along with the TID, and I was one of the people who was kind of reluctant. I would like us as a board to think about having some kind of baseline for TID housing developments where we say a minimum of a certain % has to be affordable housing. So when people are going into these projects, that's built into what we're asking them to do. I know that there are several projects in Madison that are that way. A lot of what happened on East Washington Avenue and the developments there are that way. And that way, you're not bringing something to us and then we're saying, well, but what about this? I think if we have something like that up front, then it is a built-in to what we're doing. And so I too can go along with this and feel like it is a really nice way to fix kind of an eyesore with something that we also need. So I appreciate that, and I'm putting that out there for discussion at a later date.
Okay. Anybody else? Yeah, Mike?
Yeah, I know you haven't gotten the bid back yet, but I would love to see solar sitting on the roof of that.
As would I.
I think I would see a much easier path personally for me. I mean, I hate TIDs, okay? But I would see a much better chance or path for me to support this with solar on the roof. Question for you. If you took two of your smallest units and made it affordable housing, the hit on your income on a year for rent would probably be less than 1%. Is that doable?
We're actually probably not that far off from the same pricing in some of those units. It becomes a lending problem. It becomes it's kind of a different animal towards the bank's perspective. And so if I put any restrictions, it's a tough thing to add. Any restrictions scare off the normal standard banks.
So you really need much more capital up front to support affordable housing.
We have the expert here. I would guess that it's a significant swing, but my company doesn't actually do that, so I don't know how much per unit you would expect to see. I would guess that it's significant. On $100 in rent can turn to $20,000 in value real quickly, and that might be low.
Well, I think probably the one thing that if you remember the project that you just approved maybe a year ago with LIHTC, the low-income housing, maybe it's not quite the same definition, but that developer had to basically have all of the increment and go the entire length of the district to get the amount of money that they needed to get that WEDA tax credit. So I don't know exactly what it would take to get there, but it definitely, you're definitely not bringing in as much income, so your assessment's going to be lower. based on that kind of assessment.
Okay.
So I'm not gonna tack that onto your project and complicate this. But if you'd commit to put solar on the roof or your best effort to do it, I'll support this.
All right, Matt?
Just briefly on the affordability issue. So in my experience, I've really only worked in one community that had some success in requiring or collaborating with developers to put a relatively small number of affordable units in projects like this. And there were a couple of reasons several reasons for that. One is if the costs, I mean, you've got to administer the restrictions on rent. So if you're not a developer who has the experience and the infrastructure to do the rent verification and all of the administrative work associated with doing that, that's a challenge. We did have in Sherwood Hills a couple of projects where the developer contracted with a third party who does that work, and so we were able to get, you know, in comparable sized projects like 2 or 3 affordable units. But there's a hurdle in terms of expertise and cost and administration that was a challenge. The financing is definitely another issue, and it basically just added to the TIF. And in Sherwood Hills, this was expensive real estate on University Avenue. I mean, the cost was in the neighborhood of $50,000 per unit. It wouldn't be as expensive, I don't think, here, because the land cost would be different, but it was pretty pricey. So what I have seen is it's nice to be able to get a few units here and there, but I think it's easier to get more affordable units in projects like the one that Jefferson Crossing is doing, where it's a tax credit supported project. It's their business, so they know how to do it. And they got the tax credit also as part of the capital financing. So, I mean, I think it's an interesting discussion to have. You know, is there a path forward to say, hey, with projects like this, we always want to look at, can we get 2 units, 3 units, 4 units? But I've really only seen one community that has been able to find a way to make it work with some degree of success. But it's always been a challenge. So I just thought I think it's a discussion worth having, but it's not easy to accomplish.
Okay. So,
Yeah, I have a comment.
all right, yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
So I'm going to vote for this too. And, you know, what swayed me, I think, is that, that businesses were looked at going in there. I feel like it's sort of a commercial corridor, and if we're going to start putting housing there too, that's maybe a discussion for another day. That's something, you know, if we want to start integrating that, but I didn't see it as that. It's a beautiful building, so don't take it the wrong way. I just am not in love with the location being here, but it's also not a hill I want to die on, so I'm gonna, because we need housing flat out. Not just affordable, we need regular market rate housing also. And that the need is getting pretty desperate, so I think if you could make this work, that's good. I trust you to make it work, so.
All right.
Randy?
Yes.
Just a note on the use change. Obviously, yes, this would be a change of use on North Main Street. We don't have other housing on North Main Street itself. This will require a comprehensive plan amendment. So unfortunately, we didn't line up to get on board with the ones we'll be discussing later, which we'll have a joint meeting in early June with the Planning Commission for that. So that'll be coming later, but hopefully it does open up that larger discussion of what do we want to see the future of North Main Street look like. Just 2 notes on the management affordability. I do know Lakestone, that's doing their Prairie Brook project over on Janesville Street. You know, that was their first LIHTC WIDA project, and even though they're very experienced apartment property managers, that was their first WIDA project, and so WIDA didn't authorize them to even do the lease up and the property management of Prairie Brook. So they're working with a company called Oakbrook out of Madison, and they're going to be doing the leasing office. So it is very complicated. I learned a lot through the Lakestone process, but definitely a conversation worth having. Mike and I were actually in a webinar a couple of weeks ago with some sustainability staff and other municipalities, but I did hear mention, I can't remember which community, but there are also some communities that have a sustainability, not necessarily requirement, but sort of bonus points that are added for TIF projects. I'm not exactly sure, what that looks like. We could
Middleton.
certainly, yeah, so we could ask, look at what they have too, if that's a route that you all would like to go in the future. I know we just revised the TIF policy to make it really open-ended, but if there's certain objectives the board wants to see in TIF, we can definitely open that box again.
All right, we got a motion and a second to approve. Let's call it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, congratulations, Adam.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate everybody's help and patience along the way here. So we bridged a big gap. Now I need lumber prices to come down.
Thanks, Adam. Good job. Thanks, Dave.
Okay, we're on to 4C is, 4C is $6,170,000 general obligation corporate purpose bonds, Series 2022A. Staff recommendation is to approve. We have to approve each one of these separately. Dave, are you going to walk us through these? Okay.
And actually, this is one thing that I remember that Mike asked in the past, is you can actually approve all these at once.
Okay.
It is up to the board members whether they want to do them individually. So if one of you wants to approve them individually, then you'll approve it individually. So that's kind of the rule on that. So there are quite a few initial resolutions for the projects you're doing, you'll see. We have the overall, I think the first one actually must be the engagement letter with Corals. Do you want to talk about that one first? Because I don't usually address the Corals in scope letter. Before I get into my spiel.
I guess I'm not sure which. Mine starts, I have your informations first.
Yeah, so C1 says authorized scope of engagement with Coral, so that'd be their bond council engagement letter that they sent out. I think it matches to what I have in the pre-sale report.
The engagement letter from.
Corals and Brady.
I don't have that.
I don't think it's.
Is that in the packet?
I didn't see it in the packet.
It is.
It should be, is it?
It's just below
I
the
think they sent
pre-sale
it to
report.
Candy last week, actually.
Just below where?
The pre-sale report. So if you keep going, a few pages here.
Okay.
Page 57?
The scope of
In the packet.
engagement with
It
Corals.
has bookmarks too, Jeff, if you break down the bookmarks.
Too late.
There it is.
This
You
one.
just-
That's the one.
Yay.
So when we go through these processes, and Dave, you may be able to expand on this a little better than I, but the process of going through this is very highly specialized and technical, and so there's very few counsels or law firms that can offer the type of bond counsel advice that we need in order to go through this process. And so Quarles and Brady is one of those firms, and we've worked with them regularly on these bonds. And so part of this process is approving a scope of engagement with them to make sure that we're doing what we need to be doing from a process standpoint and from a legal standpoint.
Yeah, so I mean, Quarles and Brady is probably the biggest municipal bond counsel law firm in the state. We run into them probably 90% of the time. There are a few others. I had a different one in Wanakee, but I don't run into White Hirschbach very much. But Quarles and Brady is someplace that we work with a lot, and they definitely know the village of Oregon very well. So it's something we have sized into the issue, so it is in the issue as far as one of the issuance costs that we typically have in here. And I hope it agrees to what you have on the screen. So.
Okay. So, the board, are we okay with doing them all at once? I see some heads, okay. So,
Okay.
Dave,
So
yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to go through the pre-sale report. So Jeff, if you want to try to get back to that.
Got it. Right there.
There you go. Go on to the next page.
Okay.
So this is a summary of the proposed borrowing. We're proposing to take $6,170,000 general obligation corporate purpose bonds to the market in about a month. The reason that we're taking this to the market is we want to fund some fire equipment, some park projects. One of your big first installments of the library construction project. And then we had some projects that didn't qualify for bonds. And so as you remember from last year when we did the Village Hall project, there was a two-step process to get it into bonds. And so we took out a bank note, which I think you approved last week. When we close the bonds in about 6 weeks, that bank loan will be refinanced into these bonds, and that way we can schedule those items over a bigger period of time. Plus, you've reduced how much you have in issuance cost by not taking this as a smaller market issue. So it's also administratively just having one issue to pay on. It's something easier on staff as well. So that's a little part of it, but it's something that it's a way to kind of consolidate and have everything in one place and take advantage of the reasonably low rates that we've had. They're not obviously as good as we had last year, but they're still a pretty good market right now. As far as the amount of outstanding debt we have right now, there is a graph in here that'll show you what the end of 22 looks like, but at the date that we actually issue these bonds, you're going to have about $35 million in general obligation debt outstanding, which is about 50% of your capacity limit, which I think you heard me, if you were on the board last year, you heard me talk a lot about debt capacity, and debt capacity is basically 5% of your equalized value or your taxable property in the village. And right now you're at half of that. I think we talked about a policy, and I can't remember, did we pass a policy yet? So 75% I believe is your policy right now, so you've still got a decent amount of space. There is a 5-year look at it based on the CIP plan that staff had brought forward for me to build, and that goes up as long as we're jumping there. With the projects we have in right now, we're going up to, maybe I don't have it in here.
Almost 59%.
Yeah, almost 59% in 2025. So, that's after a couple years of library. I think that's the year of a big park project. So, there's a reason that you're going up, but I think at that point, if I'm not mistaken, and I think it's got the senior center, you've already got the Village Hall taken care of. I think a lot of your big projects are kind of in at that point, and then I would think that unless you're going to have some building project come in after that, that you will see that tail off that's starting to occur there become more normal, just because you've kind of knocked off some of those growth-related projects that you had to do because of the village expanding the way it is. As far as the ability to call the bond, so basically we're going to have you go out to about 10 years before you're able to call the bond. What this does really is we look at kind of how much of the debt issue we're going to have paid off, and we try to get at least 50% of the bonds paid off before we have a call. You can do a shorter call, but you pay for it. The interest rate would probably be a little higher. If you want flexibility, that's something obviously we could do, is try to get the call shorter. But like I said, your interest rates will be higher. You'll pay for that more flexibility. So we try to put it somewhere where it makes sense and the underwriters like to see it. Let's see, this year we are not going to have a problem with bank qualification. Last year I think we were over 10 million. Is that right? Yeah. So, we'll get interest rates that are a little bit better than we got last year, just because some of the financial institutions that can't bid on things over 10 million will be in the market. We'll go through a rating call with Moody's again, where we'll put on a song and dance, and Martin will get his first shot at talking about the development. Elise, I know, had a real good part in last year too. We'll talk about all the good things going on here, and then they'll provide that rating for that sale. Let's see, Jeff, I gotta tell you what I'm doing, don't I?
Mm-hmm.
Page 3 on mine.
Okay.
So at the top of that is the method of sale. We typically have you go to a competitive sale on this. When you're going out for new money to pay for projects, you can't negotiate a sale, so we go for competitive bids because state law requires it. And so we're going to try to get this out to local and regional and national underwriters so that we get as many bidders as possible. The one thing that we did last year that we decided to go ahead with this year is called parameters. What that means is the resolution that you'll pass tonight will delegate the responsibility for approving the sale to the staff. So I think it's Lisa, the finance director, and Candy, the clerk, I believe, are signing off. Is that, or maybe it's Martin the second one. Yep, Martin, sorry, is the second one. So Lisa will be primary. Too many of these are happening at the same time, so things are kind of meshing together, and if I just read my sheet here, it would have said it. So what happens is the underwriter has to meet certain, like not to exceed kind of things. Like, we don't want any more than $6,170,000 in bonds, so that's not going to be a hard one. As far as a maximum bid, we don't want to have too much premium because per state statutes, Wisconsin statutes, you can't have more than 3 years worth of interest from that premium. So what we do at first is premium that's fairly normal pays for the underwriter's discount, and then anything left over goes into a debt service reserve, and each year you pay the debt with that until that's burned off. So if we have more than 3 years, it causes issues with bond counsel, and so we put a maximum bid on this so we don't get too much of that. The minimum bid is really what covers the underwriter's maximum compensation number, which is about $12.50 per thousand of bonds. So that's what that minimum bid. So we don't want any less than that, and we don't want any more than that 106 of the par. The maximum true interest cost is something that I'm going to ask you to amend tonight. I passed out, at least I think passed out an interest rate graph. It's not pretty. What's happened since the beginning of the year is really interest rates have gone up about 10 points per week. The number that we have in this report is probably low now, and although these came out maybe a week or so ago, yeah, they're a little low right now. And so the rates we're getting are somewhere between 3 and 3 1/4 right now. And if you're going out about 10 points per week, we're kind of talking about getting awful close to that 4% that's in here. And really what we don't want to do is have underwriters unable to bid on your bonds and us have to put off the sale longer and have higher rates. So all we're doing is asking you to raise that true interest cost restriction to 4.5%. I think that gives us enough room that we won't end up having to put off the sale. We'll ensure that you have a sale because I think you've got some contracts probably signed already, and we want to get cost of your capital to you as fast as possible and try not to have it cost more when we get it out there. Hopefully interest rates stabilize and we don't go up that much, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. And this doesn't tell the underwriter that they can go and have a bigger bid because you've done this. They will still be competitive and they will price it to the market. Anybody who's super crazy isn't going to win your bid. So we're just trying to make sure that we don't have a blip. I did have that happen with one of my clients. In fact, I had to sell it today as a regular village board meeting sale just because it was a taxable issue and interest rates just went so fast. It just, we came in actually, I think it was about 27 points higher than that benchmark that we were trying to make sure we didn't do. So they actually had to redo their sale as not a parameter sale. And so we don't want to put off your sale. We want to get you into the market, get you your money as fast as possible, and hopefully not have it be any more expensive than it might be. And then the other benchmark there is $150,000. So if they do give us premium, what we like to do here, as you saw in the capital plan last year, is we try to keep your tax rate stable. And when you looked at the first 5 years, that tax rate was something we tried to hold. We're trying not to make the residents see a bounce in your tax rate. Levy limits will take care of part of it. If we have a good debt plan, we get a good rate in there that covers your projects, and we can hold that stable. We want to be able to move some of that principal up to cover what's going to get knocked off by the premium to pay that interest. And so all we do is kind of mess with the blocks a little bit to make sure that we have a tax rate that's smooth for going forward and then for planning purposes. Because if we don't move it up, then your tax rate's going to go down, and we're going to sit there going like this. So it's something that helps you with your capital plan and having a stable tax rate and not having the residents see a bounce in the tax rate. Now that was a lot for parameters, but I thought it was important for you to hear. I'll stop there if you want to ask me any questions on that to start, because that is something that I'm asking you to amend. You'll need a motion to amend that maximum true interest cost from 4% to 4.5%.
like a separate motion?
Yeah, so before you actually approve the parameters resolution, you'll do a motion to amend the parameters resolution, maximum true interest cost, and then you can take a vote on the entire thing. Because Quarles will want to have that in hand when they do that.
All right, yeah.
Does pushing the call date out past 10 years make the interest cheaper?
Yes, but it's not real normal to go longer. Because if one thing is because the interest rates are up, you know, you're also taking yourself out of the potential of prepaying some, as well as what maybe if you had cash on hand, paying some off. So it could help you in the future as far as, you know, getting your money into a cheaper bond at that point. You know, the last 2 years we've had extremely low rates. Maybe we'd be back there and we'd miss a chance and have to wait.
Okay.
But I think you're probably right. I think I heard more from our bond sale department that the later the years isn't as big of an impact as the shorter.
All right, so Dave, should we do the true interest cost first?
If you want to do that now and then I keep going, or you can do that after I finish.
Why don't you go ahead and finish?
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Jeff, I'm going to page 5.
Page 5, okay.
And there's no risk factors this year because we don't have like the TIF districts or the water or sewer paying for any of these notes. So that's typically one of the risk factors. This risk factor about current refundings is, you know, basically if you put this into something that doesn't call until 2030, 2031 or 2032, is that, you know, you lose a chance of paying off these bonds now. Well, you don't have $6 million, so it's kind of it's a risk factor, but you don't have that kind of money sitting around anyway. So as far as the other service providers, like we talked about, bond counsel is Quarles and Brady. The village uses bond trust services as a paying agent, which is kind of an insurance policy. I think we talked about this last year, where, you know, if you miss a debt payment, it can cause some things on your credit rating. And so a paying agent actually is a real good reminder not only to pay your bonds, but make sure that you're doing it on time, as well as when there's weird things like term bonds where they lump the underwriter will lump a couple maturities together, and so it'll look to the investor like a block of a bigger amount, but for the village we'll make annual payments. But if we don't do this mandatory call in the first year, when we miss that, we can really mess things up too. So if you have changeover staff, and I don't think Lisa's gonna be here forever, so in fact she's threatening to retire before me, I think, but it's something that when you have a change in staff, it's just something that protects you from missing something that's important. And then Moody's is your rating agency. So on page 6 is the calendar events. I'm here going over the pre-sale report and asking you to consider the parameters resolution that delegates the award of the sale of the bonds on April, it'll be on April or May 12th. We'll talk to Moody somewhere the week of the 25th. In fact, isn't it scheduled? Yeah.
I think it is.
It's scheduled. It might be the 26th. We'll do the due diligence call, which is our call where we go over the official statement. That's the document that we send out to the underwriters that they, you know, it's got everything from building permits to your financial statements to some just financial information that they use to actually put together their bid and determine whether they're going to bid on you. We go over that with staff to make sure it's accurate and complete, and then once that's done, we send it out to them to start looking at. Like I said, we'll hope to have you approve the resolution so that staff can sign off on the 12th, and then the money will come into the village's bank account on June 1st, and we'll redeem the bank note that same day. There's some schedules in here. I think you've maybe seen some of them recently. This is the first year of the 5 years that we've been working on with staff. You're basically doing a little bit of parks, some fire equipment, that first amount for the library, and then there was some, I think, some public works equipment mostly, maybe some police squads in that 236 that went to the bank last week. Then there's issuance costs, which is municipal advisor, which is Ellers. Bond counsel is the contract you saw earlier. Rating, because we're over 5 million, is 19,000. They have a scale. Moody's has a scale that ratchets up at 5 million. I think the next one's more like 25 million. So Paying agent, I just talked about what that service does, and then the underwriter that's the amount that they take for compensation, but that's an amount that can change on sale day. If they want to win your bond bid, they'll lower that amount, and that's happened pretty much every year in the past. Typically, they don't keep the whole thing, so that's just a way to win the bid. And then just a little rounding, some interest income gets us to the $5,000 block of a $6,170,000. The next schedule on page 8 is just the way we solve for the tax rate. So if you look at this, that $2.13 per thousand of equalized value, that's in the 5th column from the right, is what we're aiming at for a tax rate for the 5 years. So if you had all 5 years put together on the schedule, which I think I sent off to Martin earlier, that's the number we were aiming at. And then just, if you're looking at a 1-year thing, you can see then it ratchets down each year, and that's how we show you that you have flexibility to do those future projects. The pink section is really the repayment schedule for the overall issue. That breaks out a little farther on the next page, where we have the breakout of what's being done. So we have the library's repayment schedule, the fire equipment, the parks, and the amount being refunded from the bank note, which will be paid off over the 10 years, which is those note items we always do over 10 years. Then we've already talked about the debt limit. That does have all 5 years into that, just so it's more meaningful. Otherwise, it would go down as we went across because those other 4 years aren't in here. The parameters, sale information, I included it again this year. You guys are pros though, so this is your second, at least maybe third year that you've done this. So I included that just so you can read what that's about. And then this was the interest rate graph before the one I gave to you, or maybe 2 weeks ago. So you can see things have changed a little bit since I sent this out. Okay, that's a lot, so I'm happy to answer any questions. Anything you have on the borrowing, and staff can help out as far as any of the projects or equipment as well.
All right, so Dave, help me with this, please. We'll take a motion we'll take care of the interest first, the true cost.
Sure, yeah.
So make sure I have this right. So we want to change the true cost interest from 4% to 4.5%.
So, yeah, true interest cost from 4 to 4.5 for the parameters resolution.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion? Amanda? You got it. Derek? Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then, Dave, you said we could take 1 through 6 all at once in our packet?
Yeah, typically, I would think you could do one with it as well. But, usually I'm talking about the initial resolution.
Do you want to do?
I don't know why you couldn't do all.
Okay, all right.
Unless somebody wants to pull one.
All right. Are we okay with that? Okay, somebody want to make a motion? Take 1 through 6? Carlene? She's agreeing with me. 1 through 6, okay. For approval, can we get a second? All right, Mike, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, all right. That was easy.
Thanks for all the explanations, really helpful.
My pleasure.
This is actually my first time, so.
And I made sense.
Well, I at least felt like I had an idea of what I was looking at, so I'll have to read. Before you explained it, I had no idea what I was looking at, and I read it, and I was like, okay, somebody's going to explain this, and then I'll have a better idea. So now I
Can you
do.
repeat it back?
No, I cannot.
If you have
But-
any more questions, let Lisa know and she can forward them on to me.
Yeah,
Happy to do that.
thank you.
All right, let's move to 5, which is proclamations and announcements. 5A is resolution number 2210, declaring May 2022 as No Mo May. Staff recommendation is to approve, and we do have Teresa is here.
I'm letting some other people talk.
All right.
Introduce ourselves first. My name is Amy Ferkey, and I am one of the members of the Oregon Nature Alliance.
And I'm Melissa Rosner, and I am also a member of the Oregon Nature Alliance.
Can you give us your address too? Just
Sure, I live at 850 Longwood Drive in the village.
735 Edenberry Lane in the village.
okay. Thank you.
and we are hopeful that May will come with better weather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kidding. Can you guarantee that, please?
So what is no-mow May? The goal of no-mow May is to allow the grass to grow without mowing for the entire month of May, in order to provide the forage and the habitat for early season native pollinators. People who do not or have not yet applied herbicides are encouraged to let their grass and other flowering plants grow, such as white clover, wild violets, and dandelions, without mowing for the entire month of May. It's a conservation initiative that was first popularized by Plant Life, an organization based in the United Kingdom, and is gaining traction all across North America. Appleton was the first city in the U.S. to participate in No Mow May in 2020 by officially suspending the weed ordinance for their community, and 435 homeowners registered to participate. A study was conducted in connection with Appleton's adoption by NMM by Lawrence University and published in the National Center for Biotechnology Information. The study found that both the abundance of bees, total number of bees, was 5 times higher, and the richest of bees, or the number of bee species, were 3 times higher in the yards of the participating properties than nearby parks that had been mowed. The impact of not mowing had a significant impact. The benefits of No Mow May: participants will provide pollen and nectar sources for early season pollinators at a time when there isn't much else in bloom. Village citizens will be more aware of the importance of providing food sources to pollinators. Citizens will see the impact that they can have as an individual to support bees, butterflies, and other native pollinators that are crucial to the health of our ecosystems. Bees are facing catastrophic decline. In North America, nearly 1 in 4 native bee species is imperiled, according to the Center for Biological Diversity, partly because of habitat loss, pesticide use, climate change, and urbanization. The Oregon community can do something to positively impact the bee population at no cost. In addition to benefiting pollinators, reducing mowing frequency will save water, help lawns become more resilient to drought, and reduce emissions from gas-powered lawn equipment that often lack the emission reduction equipment found on lower engines or larger engines. An interesting fact, according to the EPA, each gas-powered lawnmower produces as much air pollution as 43 new automobiles driven 12,000 miles a year.
So I'm going to talk about what Oregon Nature Alliance plans to do for No Mow May. So first of all, we really want to publicize this event. We want to make sure that people in the village know about it and know why it's important. So we will publicize this both on social media and then in Oregon Observer, hopefully with a press release and also in the listing of events throughout the community. We plan to create a sign-up online so that residents can indicate that they want to participate, and also to request a sign for their lawn that will indicate that they are participating. It will also increase awareness not only for the community but also for their neighbors of what they are doing. And again, alert their neighbors so that they know why they are not mowing their lawn. We also plan to educate people about the importance of providing habitat and food sources for our pollinators, especially in early spring, and on other ways to incorporate bee-friendly practices into their homes, such as planting native flowers, creating nesting bee habitats, and reducing herbicides and pesticides. This also will tie very nicely into the activities of the library that they have planned as part of their Plant Wildflower Grant. We hope that this will encourage the residents to see how they can positively affect the environment within their own properties, giving them that ownership that they can make a difference as well. So what are we asking the board? We are asking Oregon Nature Alliance would like to promote this No Mow May event in the village this year. In order to make residents comfortable with doing this, we are asking the village board to suspend the enforcement of the weed ordinance for the month of May, and to adopt the proposed resolution that is in your packet.
Okay.
If there's any questions?
Anybody? All right, so we're looking for, you got a question, Amanda?
Yeah, I do, but it's actually more for Jeff, or does this mean Public Works?
Well,
isn't
I was gonna ask a little bit of discussion on that. We would just like direction from the board on what your expectations would be. And I've thought about this, I wholeheartly support, I think it's a neat idea, and, but I will tell you that a couple of years ago, I tried to not mow some things and
Didn't go well.
pretty much got ran out of town. So, but what I would think it would be a good option is we still need to be able to probably mow as needed playing fields for like the soccer and other sports that are going on. We don't necessarily have to mow non-playing field areas, definitely not drainage ways or around drainage ponds or anything like that. However, if that's your direction to me, I will wholeheartedly support that, but it has to be from the village board, because last time I made that executive decision and it was a very unpleasant experience.
Is that it, Jeff, or was there something
Yeah,
else?
yeah, no,
Okay.
that's it. And I mean, I think it's, would just kind of let us know what direction you want us to not enforce this, but I don't want to have the board pass this and then us going out and mowing everything in sight. I think that looks a little backwards.
Okay, let me just add one clear, so what about parks?
Well, if there are play fields, yes. If there's not
Okay.
play fields, then we would not use that.
Okay, all right.
Can I clarify playing fields? So when you say playing fields, you mean ones that the soccer association and others are using for playing
Correct.
fields? But if it's just a field that's not it doesn't have lines and things, you wouldn't mow that?
Exactly. That's
Got it.
kind of what I think that would be
I think that makes sense.
logical, yeah.
Yeah, Mike?
Yeah, I certainly am in favor of a resolution, not only for No Mow May, but for making sure that we walk the talk. We'll call it Mowgate 2. We have much better marketing than Mowgate 1, so.
Well, this
I'm-
is just for May, so I mean, this is very early
Correct.
season, and obviously there's really, other than a few tulips around, there's not much been growing yet.
Yeah, I think it's a win-win for the village not to mow and save us some money, and.
Yeah, we have plenty of other
Yeah.
things we can work on and that type of stuff, so.
I would just recommend that if when you do this, then that your staff puts a sign out in the park so that people see it and that they think,
Well, is
just.
that something the Nature Alliance would do? I mean,
We're
because we're
doing
trying not
signs.
to create work for the staff and
Yeah, we
everything.
were
Yep.
definitely planning on making signs for all residents, but we were also gonna have like a PDF file so people want to print off themselves, but I think we could also definitely provide signs for the village as well
That would be great, thank you.
and help put them out.
Yeah.
That
that would be
would
great.
Okay.
So-
And one of the things we were also discussing is that people don't feel comfortable leaving their entire lawn, they could just do like a front portion of it maybe and stick their
Sure.
sign in
Mm.
there or something, just to,
Mm-hmm.
And we also can counsel people, so if they don't quite understand what to do or they're afraid of that their neighbors will be upset, we can talk to them about the weed ordinance, but then we can also talk to them about ways that can make it less onerous for other neighbors if they're not in agreement, like just mowing a strip around the edge of the lawn so that not as much flows into their
Tried
neighbor's
that.
lawns, things like that. We're definitely into being non-confrontational and wanting this to be go well.
So you will make sure, because I could just see this blowing up in our, make sure that residents know this is totally voluntary.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I could see people think that they have to do it and they get upset and, yeah.
Yeah, this would definitely be voluntary, just individual citizens who'd like to.
Okay, yeah, Derek.
Just like to say, not only in support of, but super excited to participate in this.
Mhm.
And as long as no one tells Jeff, I might just take it into June.
Oh,
July, August.
all right.
Just call them when your neighbors call me. that kind
All
of-
right, Amanda and then Jerry.
Yeah, I just had a question for you. I noticed in the packet, but one of the things that can be problematic for some people is it may increase ant populations. I don't know where maybe it wasn't in the packet, but I was doing some reading online. Does mowing around your house, like kind of creating a barrier where it is mowed between your unmowed lawn and your house, like help with that at all so that ants don't come inside? Or do you know anything about ways to mitigate that?
Tara,
Huh?
right. No.
Oh.
I'm not sure if the mowing part would help necessarily, it probably would, but there's also a lot of natural, you can mix up a lot of different natural, like, things for bugs and weeds and stuff like that. If you look online, there's a lot of different ways, things that you can spray involving like dish soap and stuff like that, that actually helps with that
Okay.
too. So, I mean, that's something that we could easily, kind of include in that as well, as if you're concerned about ants or, insects or whatever, here's some environmentally safe, friendly ways that you can take care of it.
Yeah,
I
that would be
actually
good.
personally have a weed killer that you can spray on your lawn that's completely environmentally friendly, but it takes care of everything. It's awesome.
All right, Jerry?
Yes, Jeff, where are you on the retention ponds now? I know a couple of years ago,
We've been mowing almost everything in the village,
Okay.
continuing to.
so you're still gonna continue mowing,
Not in May,
not in May?
according, well, what I'm hearing from the board, but am I hearing that from the board?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
Okay.
Yep.
the retention ponds are there to hold water.
I would love, and I think, we could definitely talk about that in the future, and I'd love to work with Teresa or your group, and if the board wants us to mow less, I'd be happy. We actually have an entire map of the village of all the areas we mow, and if there are areas that you want us to mow less frequently, we'd be happy to do that. I mean, I think sometimes it makes sense.
I don't understand why you'd wanna mow retention ponds at all.
I agree.
You would, the longer the vegetation, the more water it would soak up.
Okay, are we, yeah.
So this, as we're, planning on participating in this, Jeff, is there any way to track the cost savings on equipment or fuel for this over the course of this year? I don't want to add extra work, but I think it might be interesting to
Are you sure
project
you
to
don't want
next
to add
year.
extra work? I mean, only if we are out there having them track how much time it is and making some assumptions on mowers and, I mean, we could definitely look at that. If the board wants us to look at, this is going beyond the discussion of just no mow May, but if really wants us to look into, and we've talked about it at the public, for having it as a discussion at the Public Works meeting, to invite people in, because there are other people that feel very, very differently on this. And I'm sure they would want their voices heard as well. Most of them border a drainage way or a detention pond, by the way, or park. But it'd be hard to track, I think.
All right, can we,
Yeah, I was
can we get
just
a,
thinking about that.
can we get a motion and a second? Remember, Jeff wants us to exclude the playing fields in the resolution. All right, Derek, second? Amanda? Okay, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
What are we
Opposed?
voting on? Which motion?
The no
On
mow.
The no mow.
May
No mow
and
and
Exclusion of
excluding the playing
exclusion of the
fields.
playing
Yep.
fields.
So
Okay.
what we just voted on includes not mowing for the village, except for the playing fields, okay.
Yep. All right,
And then we
thank
have a
you.
different discussion sometime about rain gardens and retention ponds.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go to 5B.
Okay, good.
5B, upcoming meetings and events. Have a calendar in our packet for you to use. 6 is reports of village officers. A is village administrators report. We have Martin's report in our packet. Do we approve? No. No, okay, I didn't think so. All right. 6, we'll go to 6B, police chief report, February 2022, our monthly report and training list in the packet. Chief, is there anything you would like us to, you want to highlight, or?
Sure, just briefly.
Okay.
In February for our notable incidents, and this does unfortunately come up. On February 3rd, we were handling a call where a woman had to be arrested, and she became physically combative and did approximately $900 worth of damage to the back seat of our squad car. So in these situations where it could be an officer's uniform, officer's equipment they wear on them, the back of the squad, the side of the squad, if any damage is done that is owned by the village, what we'll do is we'll request restitution for that damage. It takes a long time for the case to get resolved to the point we know whether or not we got restitution. And in the cases I've seen, it's maybe 10% of the time, but we try every single time. So I thought that was a good point to bring up to all of you. And then February 17th, our officers responded to a pulseless non-breather, individual that had attempted suicide, and they were able to revive that person. later on this year, we will certainly give a life-saving award to those officers involved. The rest are just the calls for service. You know, and looking at the numbers myself, right away, what stuck out like a sore thumb is the fact that we dropped roughly about 200 calls in comparison to taking February this year versus February last year. And in examining it closer, really, one of the major components here was the traffic, and it's, you know, the low staffing is a contributing factor to it. We don't have the staffing. They're not going to be able to be out there doing a lot of that traffic. So hopefully later this year we can get those back up. I know our officers are picking up a lot of overtime to help with that issue. And then there's a lot there for the training we've attended, so I'm happy to take questions on any of these documents.
All right. Anybody? Yeah? Yeah.
One number that stood out to me that was pretty dramatic was the increase in bar checks this year, 29, last year, 1.
Yes.
And it just stands out. I was wondering if everything was okay, if anything was going on with that.
A lot of it has to do with COVID. A lot of
Okay.
bars weren't open at that time,
okay.
so.
That makes sense.
Anybody else? Yeah, Derek?
Just want to say I appreciate the training schedule being back in there. I think people enjoy seeing that. I did have a question, not necessarily regarding to the training schedule, but as I was reading this, it kind of popped into my head. The SRO contract with the school, when is that up for, if I remember right, there was going to be a spring meeting for that? Do you know
Yep.
when that's going to happen?
So the school district's legal counsel and I met, I believe it was last week, and we looked through the data, the raw data, and then the training that the SRO has attended. And then what we also looked at is the goals that are established in the MOU. And we're putting that information together. That, we're still trying to figure out the next meeting date, so I don't know when that'll be.
Okay, that's going to be the public meeting, I'm assuming?
That's the school's.
It is.
it's the-
It is, Derek.
Yeah, that's the school who will put that information out, as far as I
It
know.
will be, yeah, it'll be a school board meeting.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. All right, 6C, Finance Director. Lisa gave us building permits, cash and investments, impact fees. They were in our packet. Anybody have any questions for her on those? Or Lisa, anything you want to say or not
really.
say?
I think that we're probably on pace to maybe outdo the building permits from the prior year. We don't typically have that many single-family building permits pulled in the month of March. I don't know if that's because of everybody anticipating the cost of lumber going up instead of maybe April will be less. I haven't looked at that number yet, but I'm hoping we do more than 47
Okay.
for 2022.
Okay. All right, let's go to 6D, Village Department Head Staff Consultant. Jeff's got something?
I just have a comment. Jerry, it's been a pleasure to serve for you and with you the 6.5 years I've been here. Always a joy to work with. I echo Steve's comments, you know, and being able to work with you and the boards has just been a total joy for myself. So I want you to let you know that how much I personally appreciate that, and I think you've done an outstanding job.
Thank you, Jeff. I always felt like, excuse me, that I was working with the staff.
Yep.
Definitely.
Not that they were working for me, so. Excuse me, I'm getting a little emotional.
That's okay.
You guys
That's all right.
surprised me with Steve's statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
So, all right, 6E is Village Board comments, and I'll just sort of echo Jerry, and I just want to catch Luke too on this, not forget him. But Jerry, it's been a pleasure, and Luke too. I've been able to sort of get to know you a little bit, and it's been fun. And we know you got lots of things happening at work, but maybe, who knows? A couple years, you could be back. So, anybody else? Yeah.
No, I just have some final words, as you know.
All right.
And it's been discussed here tonight. This is my last meeting. I'm in my 20th year, and I can't believe it. It's gone really fast. But I guess I would encourage anybody that wants to learn about their community to come forward and attempt to hold office. you won't regret it, and you will learn an awful lot about your community. It always surprised me that even the bad meetings, after a day or two, you'd be okay with it. But the good meetings are really, really good. I guess what's really made it enjoyable for me was the fact that we had really good staff.
Mhm.
And, excuse me, wow. I thought it was a tough guy, but it's not. But I offer that however the hiring is being done, you keep doing it that way. Because the staff has been the highlight of my 20 years. And lowlights, well, we don't want to talk about those. But what does stick out to me is the 2006 flooding. That was a, well, Matt, you remember, right? That was a nasty time. So, again, if you want to really get to know your committee, step forward and pull papers, volunteer for a committee, and you'll be surprised not only will you learn about your community, but you'll meet a lot of new people, nice people.
Yeah.
So, thank you, and I'd say goodbye, but you know, I've had 2 breaks of service over that 20 years. You never know, I might get bored and come back. So, but anyway, thanks to everyone. It's been a good experience.
So Jerry, I'm going to share a little story because when you're talking about people getting involved, when I first applied, there was an opening on the board, and I think there were 10 of us applied for the board. I always remember you're the one that made the motion that I get to be here where I'm at today. So thank you for that.
I was glad to do it then.
Yeah.
I still am.
Thanks.
You know,
All right.
I just have a quick story too, because there was a comment you made that really spurred me to run for office.
Good.
I don't know if you knew that or not.
I've got to run it.
Which one? It was the vote on the library, the funding, because that was one of my things I ran on, and you said 6 million for the library, and I thought, gosh darn it, I'm gonna run for office and get more. But I will say this, I appreciate your fiscal conservatism. A lot of times when you comment on things, it made me rethink it, and you've changed my vote on a couple of things definitely over the years to make me reconsider, and that's a good thing. We need those checks and balances, so I've really enjoyed serving with you and sitting next to you, and it's been an honor.
Likewise, that was my area of expertise, so I tried to put it to use.
Okay.
So.
All right, anybody else? So
I have
both?
just one thing to
Yeah,
say.
of course.
So I,
What are you gonna say?
what am I going to say? Well, I knew you when I didn't live in the village.
Down by Brooklyn.
Right. So, you know, we got to know one another in very different circumstances, and you were always one of the go-to people when I wanted to know what was happening in the village around
Yep.
certain things. And so I knew I could count on you to tell me, you know, your perspective on what was going on, and supported you wholeheartedly when you were on for the county board every single time. And then now have really enjoyed the opportunity to be up here and work with you on the board. So thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, so Luke and Jerry, we wish you all the best.
Thanks, but you know, we're not gone for good necessarily, are we?
Okay, for now. Yeah.
We should put a county board report on the agenda, and you can just come and talk to us.
Well, I didn't say I wouldn't be coming to these meetings. I never said that.
Okay.
I just don't have to stay for the whole thing.
All right, let's go to 7. We'll go to communication, miscellaneous business. Items are for discussion, possible action. 7A is approval of vouchers in the amount of $230,292.35. We'll take a motion in a second, get it on the floor, and we can take some I see Mike and Carleen. All right, discussion. Luke?
Don't disappoint, Jerry.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, really.
Don't disappoint.
Or Luke. Luke is taking over. Anything?
Of course, with Jerry.
All right, Jerry. What do you got?
I'm good. I'm not gonna make any
All right, who had no questions?
All right.
Martin, I had you.
Luke, you have anything?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right, Candy.
All right. Bollig,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Wunsch,
Yes.
Beshin,
Yes.
Stitch,
Yes.
Belo,
Yes.
English.
Yes. All right. All right, we're on to 7B. Village President nominates for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, Carleen Besham for the Village Board Representative, Rachel I'm going to say this one wrong. Somebody help me with this. Wagabaza, okay. Lori Anderson, Dan Dick, Alice Egan, Sarah Plachetta, student member, and Allison Pillar Kelman, student. Alyssa, sorry. Pillar Kelman. It's getting late already for me, so. Student member, so staff recommendation, motion to confirm. One thing I do want to add, we do have term limits on this, so I just want to read what they will be. So Rachel will have 3 years, Dan Dick will have 3 years, Lori Anderson will have 2, Alice Egan 2, and both the students will have 1 year. And then Carleen is 1 year as well. So those are the nominations for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. I'll take a motion in a second. We'll get this thing started. Amanda and Derek, any discussion? I do want to say, Carleen, thank you for all your help. Carleen, myself, and Martin huddled. We had several applications, and it was, I think we have a good team.
Yeah, I think
here.
it'll be a good thing. I plan, after this is approved, to put out a scheduling request to all these folks to find out when the best time is for them to meet and get started, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. All right. All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 7C is request to seek candidates for janitor position. Staff recommendation motion is to approve as presented. We had a memo from Jeff in our packet, so I'll take a motion in a second so they can get started. I see Derek, and I'll take Amanda. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
All right. 7D, purchase of a 2022 Skag V-Ride mower. Talking about mowers tonight. For Mid-State Equipment in the amount of $9,827. Staff recommendation is to approve. Can we get a
Anybody else see
motion?
the irony here?
Pardon? Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to say it.
All right. I see Amanda's hand first. We need a second. Derek? Any discussion? All right. All in favor say aye. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike.
Sorry about that, Randy.
That's okay. Can see you.
Speak up more. One thing I'd like to see, I'm going to vote for this, but one thing I'd like to see in the future is a comparison and start bringing in, for any of our vehicle purchases, start bringing in the electrical vehicles, and so we can start looking at.
We've
I know
never
there's some
tried
commercial
the,
grade lawnmowers now that are electrical, and it'd be really good to start transitioning our fleet.
Okay. All right. So we got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 7E, reimbursement of property owners at 524 South Main Street for costs incurred during a December 5th, 2021 sanitary sewer main backup. Staff recommendation is to approve reimbursement of $5,000 in cleaning and personal property damage costs. If we can get a motion in a second, Amanda and Mike, any discussion by anybody?
Glad it wasn't my house.
Okay. All right, seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 7F is land use lease between the Village of Oregon and John and Gary Durfer to farm approximately 12.9 acres of part of Outlot 1 in the Oregon Parks neighborhood between April 19th and November 30th, 2022, in the amount of $150 per acre. Staff recommendation is the motion to approve as presented. You want a motion?
Sure, I'll make a
Okay,
motion.
yeah, Amanda, can I get a second? Carleen? All right, yeah, Amanda.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, do we have an idea of when we'll need to eventually end this lease so that it can be restored or whatever we're gonna do with it? Like, because I'm just wondering if allowing time for that land to be fallow would help with restoration. So I just want us to have a plan in place for when that might be.
It's an annual lease, so it's something you decide every year.
Okay.
Yeah, there's,
Yeah, Mike.
yeah, there's actually programs and funding available for the conversion of farmland directly to restored prairie and things, so
Okay.
when we're ready to deal with it and decide that's
So this is
where
good.
we're
In the
gonna go,
meantime, we
it
should
would-
keep,
Sure,
okay. Okay, thank you.
yeah, because we would lose that funding if it was taken.
Got it. Okay,
Okay.
good call.
All right, anybody else? All right, we got a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Do we have a motion in second?
I think we did, yeah,
Yeah.
because we had
I
Amanda,
did.
and then I think
It
Carleen.
was me,
I'm
yeah.
slacking here.
Yeah. Usually it's
up.
me,
I
usually
was
me,
talking
I
about
forget.
I'm still back on the sewer thinking.
All right,
Shouldn't get your mind out of the sewer.
Right?
yeah.
Thank you.
7G, agreement to undertake development in the plat of First Edition to Autumn Ridge, Phase 2B. Staff recommendation is to approve as presented. I don't know, Elise, do we need to say anything? You had a little memo, or
Yep.
Martin had a memo.
This is Phase 2B of Autumn Ridge. This is 17 single-family lots. I believe the lots have been selling pretty well in Phase 2A, so that's likely why we're seeing 2B come up quickly here. This is a good thing. This also means that the park will hopefully be ready sooner than we expected, but all of the park fees, impact fees, all of that are laid out here in the development agreement. So we just typically do these one phase at a time. But yeah, the map there that Jeff has up, the pink area, are the lots that are contained within 2B.
Okay.
Any objection on this right here, this lot right here?
Yeah, I was just gonna put in a special request. I'd like 56 and 57 to have single-story homes, please. I want to be able to see right over the top of them.
I don't think they can do that, can they?
Not
I
officially.
think that was a
Yeah,
lot of sticky note, yeah.
I know. I look
All right.
out that window every morning and think.
We need a
"Someday
motion and a
won't see very
second for
far."
this one. We haven't, Derek, and can I get a second? Somebody?
Oh.
All right, all four of you, I'll take Amanda, okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We're on to 8, report of committees. Items are for discussion, possible action. 8A is the Plan Commission. What?
Do I get a committee, or we're just doing the other committees?
No, that's tomorrow night.
Yeah, that's the reorganization.
Yeah, we're not doing,
I thought I would give a report of.
oh, you want to do your report?
Yeah, does that have to be on the agenda or not?
You can, it could have been under village board comments. so,
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to carve out a moment to.
Go
talk
ahead,
about it.
go ahead, Mike.
Yeah.
Carve away.
The Sustainability Committee met last Thursday, our first meeting. It was got a lot accomplished. We have kind of a schedule laid out as to how we're going to get our work done. We established 3 subcommittees. One is on village infrastructure. One is future growth policy, which would look at zoning and other parts of the village. And the third was dealing with wetlands and natural environment. We're currently in the process of recruiting some of the people that were applicants to the committee but did not get on the committee to help serve on some of the subcommittees. So,
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go back to 8A, Plan Commission. Plan Commission, preliminary and final plot approval of Oregon Parks Neighborhood Duplex replat for lots 53, 65, and 66 of Oregon Parks neighborhood, and a portion of Oregon Parks Avenue to be vacated by the Village of Oregon, submitted by Oregon Parks LLC. Plan Commission staff recommendation is to approve. At least, have we seen this here before?
Yes, in
I
a couple
thought so.
different versions.
Okay, so we've seen this before. We'll take a motion in a second. Anybody? Amanda? I need a second. Derek? Okay, any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, A2, ordinance number 2207, ordinance changing the zoning classification of property located at 201 Liberty Park Drive, 251 Liberty Park Drive, and 1002 Oregon Parks Avenue. Oregon Parks duplexes lots 1 through 10 from Central Business to Plan Development District. Planning Commission staff recommendation. Motion, well, we got to do one of these. Motion to suspend the rules and waive the first and second readings, and then we'll approve the ordinance. So let's do the motion to suspend the rules from one. Okay, Amanda and Derek. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, they're suspended. And then I will take a motion for the ordinance. Derek and Amanda, okay? Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 8.3, Resolution 2208, establishing public participation procedures for the 2022 amendments to the Village of Oregon Comprehensive Plan related to the new library project along North Alpine Parkway and property north of the Mary Hill subdivision. Plan Commission staff recommendation, motion is to approve. And Elise, have we seen this one here too? I know we've seen it at Plan Commission. and stuff.
Yeah, not specifically.
All right. Do you want to,
Sure.
we need to say, yeah.
So we do have two comprehensive plan amendments coming up for our joint meeting with Planning Commission, June 2nd. The two areas are the new library site and a portion of the West Side Park there to designate the parcel, which is the next agenda item, the CSM for the library lot to be the institutional use, and then the remainder of that land to be our park use. And then, if you haven't heard already, the remainder of the Mary Hill neighborhood, just east of the cemetery there, outlined in red, has Veridian has an offer to purchase that property from the Lease family estate. So the comp plan right now shows single-family residential. They will likely do a majority single-family residential of various size lots as well as some duplexes. And so we need to make a change to plan neighborhood to allow them the flexibility to offer a variety of housing types, which is a good thing. It'll offer housing and different ownership opportunities at different price points. So we'll be moving those forward. This is just the plan right now to proceed with mailing out letters to neighbors, which have to go out at least 30 days in advance of the public hearing. So those will go out later in April here, and then that public hearing will be at that early June meeting.
Okay. Yeah, let me do Mike. Mike had his up, and then Jerry.
So the hearing for the library is not only about changing the plan for the land to institutional, but it's also going to include bringing the land south of the library, the remainder of that parcel, into rural holding.
Correct,
status.
yeah, so it'll be that green designation, yeah, rural holding conservation, which again, I've explained that's how all of our parks are designated, whether they're active or more passive conservation type use. But when we get to the CSM item, the next item, the map that's shown there, yeah, the sort of a parcel that wraps around the library parcel, the north and south. It's kind of a U-shaped parcel, so that will all be park use as part of the comp plan amendment.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, Jerry.
Oh, Lise, that blue area that's next to the red outline
Mhm.
thing, the one, I guess it's be the far west. Is that the cemetery?
Yeah, oh, you're talking about the other?
This
Yeah.
is the cemetery, yes.
Mhm.
And
Yep, so that's institutional use in blue.
And the area highlighted in red, or outlined in red,
Yes,
that's the
Meridian,
Meridian Development,
Yes.
single family.
single family and duplex.
Okay.
Mhm. And there'll be a park, I think majority single family, but a couple areas of duplexes planned, and they would be owner occupied.
So I could live right by the cemetery if I wanted to.
Yeah, short commute.
Short commute.
Actually, I've got a cemetery plot right by the red line.
I know, exactly, it's right here.
Yeah. So when I feel the time is near, I can walk over and just.
Take a dirt
Dig a
nap.
hole.
All right.
Anybody see Jerry already had a shovel?
All right. All right, we need a motion and a second on this one. Derek and Mike. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now to the survey map, number 4. Survey map for Outlot 2 and part of Outlot 1 of the Oregon Parks neighborhood, creating a 6.9 acre parcel for the future library site submitted by the Oregon Public Library. Plan Commission and staff recommendation, the motion is to approve as presented. You get a motion and a second, we can get it on the table. Carleen? And get a second by Amanda. All right, discussion. Yeah, Derek?
Just one quick thing, I'm gonna email, or go over an email that I'm sure that we all got, and just kind of echoing those concerns that we heard throughout the listening sessions, that the library needs 4 acres, we need 4 acres, we need 4 acres, and all of a sudden we have 6.9 acres. I understand, I'm not looking to hold this up at all, but I would strongly encourage the library as they go forward in their plannings to stick with what they said within those listening sessions and meetings.
Yeah, I wanted to address that.
All right, yeah, Mike.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I got that email too, and I did respond to it. One of the things I wanted to point out is, when I was saying about 4 acres, it was never a final thing, but it was around that, 4 to 5, whatever. I was surprised by the size of it, but that footprint includes all of the path around the library, which is not part of what I was thinking. I mean, I personally was thinking the library and parking that footprint, and the plan has to include that bigger area. So it ended up being a bigger footprint. Maybe that's just because I wasn't thinking of the right questions to ask, but that the library needs the 4 acres. That was the distinction.
And I understand, I'm sure it was just a miscommunication all in all, going through
Right.
the process, but I think we need to be very careful moving forward, how looking back at what we've said, so people in the community understand that why this is now 6.9 acres.
Yeah.
And we don't get these emails going forward. Why
Sure.
is the library doing this or that?
Yeah, those, just to echo what you guys are both, addressed those points, the Nature Alliance recommendations were adopted after the site exploration was conducted, and so that was unique to this particular location, and a bike path around the library may not have occurred at other sites, so that does impact the boundary. We tried to take those recommendations very seriously, so we also revisited the layout of the building, so made it a hybrid so that it wasn't so dominating in the landscape as the recommendations ask for. They also wanted to make sure that the bike path wasn't immediately next to the building, and so we really tried to take those to heart and incorporate them. Also with the likelihood that the remaining parts of the property will be dedicated to some future use. We wanted to make sure this lasts for a long time to make best use of the village investment, so that, we're not 20, 30 years down the road in the same predicament we were now, where we didn't have ability to expand to the future. So we really are trying to be responsible. Another factor was the geothermal well fields, which we previously thought could go into the parking lot, and there turns out to be some challenges with that, so that's not necessarily the best solution. And so that added to the square footage required as well. So the ultimate goal would be that it's not like we're doubling the size of the library or anything. The intent would be that the areas, we also have multiple options for future expansions so that we have choices depending on where the library's needs are in the future. So it's our intent that when you look at the property, you're going to see that the library, the parts that are not developed now would be like biobasins would have native plantings, that there'd be, landscaping that would blend in with the neighboring uses of the property or whatever the village chooses to do with the rest of the parcel, so that you wouldn't necessarily even know where the property line is, that it would just really fit in, and then the library size would be similar to what we had anticipated before. So we're not just planning for future building size, but also the associated stormwater that would go with a future expansion and the parking that would go with a future expansion to make sure that we're dotting our i's and crossing our t's and just planning for all those pieces that go together.
I want to also comment on a change you made. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
In the parking lot where it was before solid parking lot, now it has the area in between for rain garden, which is a much more, takes up more space for the parking lot area, but it is also a better use as far as habitat goes and water management goes for that space. You got to park your cars somewhere, and having that in between, I think, is a really good option.
All right, Mike has been patient.
I had a discussion with the person that sent that email, and several other people that raised similar concerns. What I told them was the built area of the library was really no bigger, the actual footprint, and we ended up reaching the conclusion that it actually ends up restoring more land to prairie, and probably is a good thing.
And
So-
I can understand that, which is why I'm not necessarily objecting to the size, the 6.9 acres that are proposed here. I'm just saying, when we put this out there to the village, that we need to be careful with the wording, and that we're if we are changing things, then a little bit of explanation to go along with it, why it's being changed, because people are reading this, and they're not getting the in-depth necessarily right away. So
They see it and they think the library has gotten bigger.
exactly.
Yeah, okay. All right, we do have a motion and a second on the table to approve. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. And we did 5 already. We took that earlier. We're on to 6. Extraterritorial certified survey map creating a 5.01 acre lot from property located south of Netherwood Road near the Matson subdivision in the town of Oregon, submitted by Rebecca. I'm not even going to try her last name, but Plan Commission staff recommendation, the motion is to approve as presented. And I think we saw, did we see this at Plan Commission already?
Yeah, this is just a
Okay.
pretty standard carving a residential property out of a larger farm field. So this
Okay.
is one of their splits they're allowed to do in the town, no
Okay.
objections.
Okay. So I'm looking for a motion in a second. We can get it on the table. All right, Mike and Derek, any discussion on this? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 9 is unfinished business. Items are for discussion and possible action. 9A is review creation of term limits for village boards, committees, and commissions. Martin, I don't know who wants.
Just quick go over kind of a background. So this is one of the items that came out of our discussion of rewriting chapters 1 and 2 of the village code, and was kind of the last item that the board hadn't came to a resolution on. So we talked at last about it at the February 21st meeting, and then the decision was to place it on this meeting for further discussion. In my memo, I just carried forward what I had at the February meeting. Obviously, term limits is certainly something that we can do. We need probably a little bit more direction from the board on how to write them and structure them. As I point out in my memo, the different boards, committees, and commissions all have kind of a variety of requirements in terms of term length, and different specific members have sort of unique qualifications too, and including alternate members and student members. And some members need to be required to be certain people. And so we just need some more direction on that. The board wants to move forward with it.
Okay, Derek?
Yeah, and, before I put forward a motion, but, actually, I'm just gonna go ahead, and I'm gonna put forward a motion that we kick this to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and I'd love to discuss it further, but I think we have to go through the process, or, get a second for that.
Okay, anybody want to second that? Jerry? Any discussion? Yeah, Amanda?
I'm okay with it going to committee. I just was wondering, DEI should definitely look at it, but also maybe personnel. I mean, is that?
I don't disagree with you on personnel. I guess just with the DEI, I thought that this is kind of the institutional changes that we're talking about implementing, which is why that committee was created. So this might be a good kind of starting point for them to have a look at. But yeah, personnel committee wanted to look at that as well.
So one of the things that the board resolved to do, and as part of chapter 2, was to eliminate the personnel committee. So,
What?
No,
yeah.
I thought it was a finance committee.
Yeah,
that we-
no.
Not personnel,
No.
I don't think.
The finance personnel is all one committee.
No, it's not.
No,
No,
it's not.
It's
two
not.
separate.
Personal public safety is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
then, yes, you can.
I was like, because I think I'm getting assigned to that tomorrow. Just
Yeah.
checking.
Really, when I read over this, this last week, my first thought was, let's get the DI to look at it, because that's exactly why we formed that committee to begin with, is so, lesser served groups could have a little bit more of a say of how things are formed, and when we're looking at turnover on boards and committees, I think that very much plays into that, and getting a more diverse pool of people to serve within the village.
So Carlene didn't hear that she stepped out, so we're pushing this to you.
I'm referring
Yeah.
this to the DEI committee. I made a motion to refer the term limit discussion to the DEI committee to get recommendations.
So my only response to that is how fast do you want that to be turned around? Because one of the things that I feel pretty strongly about on the DEI committee is that jumping right into work before we actually know one another and have a working relationship is not necessarily the best way to have a successful DEI committee. So I'm not likely to think that putting this on an agenda immediately is a good thing for a committee. So I guess the question is, how fast a turnaround are you expecting on something like this?
I would.
So Derek and then Mike's got something to say.
I would
Go ahead,
just say
Derek.
that it's been years,
Yeah.
decades, if not since this has been gone over, so I don't think there's any immediate rush, but I
Okay.
mean, it would be nice to
Then
have done by
I'm
next
fine
year.
with that then.
Yeah, and just Carlene, I'll echo, your committee's got to they have to get to know each other and be comfortable with each other first, I think, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike?
Yeah, Martin. So this is like the final piece of redoing chapters 1 and 2. Can we proceed without this and amend it later?
Yes, yeah.
So be.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to push it to the diversity committee, okay? All right, yeah, you have
I
a,
would just say, like, if
I'll make an amendment to
oh,
add
well,
Amanda's.
you don't have to. I was gonna say what we could do. It doesn't help to refer it to two committees at the same time. You should have one committee look at it
Yeah.
and then another. So I'm happy to wait. I think DEI can go first and whatever,
Okay.
it's fine. So,
all right. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, 10, new business. Items are for discussion, possible action. 10A is future agenda items. Gives board members the opportunity to place new items and new business on a future agenda for discussion. Anybody have anything? Yep, Derek?
I'd like to throw out what Carlene was saying earlier about affordable housing. I think we should plan on having a discussion on that.
As it
Think
relates
so,
to
too.
TIF, or just in
Related to
general?
TIF.
Related to TIF, sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else?
Include sustainability in there too, if you would,
Related to TIP.
related to TIF.
All right, anybody else? All right. We're on to 11.
Actually, I have a question about tomorrow's meeting.
Yeah.
Because the DEI committee is not on that reorganization agenda.
Well, we did it tonight.
We did it tonight, so then we don't, so
Sustainability
it's
isn't
just,
on
a-
the-
Taken
Yeah,
care of.
The
Okay.
ordinance is written for the DEI committee that the people that are appointed previous to the reorg meeting will carry forward for the full year until next April.
okay.
And transportation will happen once we get people
Yes,
in.
exactly. Yep. All right. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. Jerry? We'll have Jerry do it. Second? By, all right, Luke? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned.